Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating text that uses the Christmas story to explore a powerful and maybe even surprising idea about what it means to be truly free.
Okay, so let's jump right in. When you think of the Nativity, you probably picture this super serene, peaceful scene, right? But the source text we're looking at suggests it actually began with a profound human crisis.
So, to really get this, we've got to look at the immense personal risk taken by its central figures, Mary and Joseph. Our source material really frames this as a story that began with danger. I mean, try to put yourself in Joseph's shoes for a second. Your fiancée, Mary, is pregnant, and you know for a fact that the child isn't yours. The logical conclusion, based on the culture at the time, well, it would be absolutely devastating. And we're not talking about a minor issue here. The social and legal stakes were just incredibly high. This was a literal life or death situation where Mary could be publicly shamed and even executed.
And then you have Mary's decision to accept her fate. She doesn't fully understand it, she's facing this immense danger, and yet she makes this radical act of trust.
So the crucial point here is that the whole story is built on this incredibly courageous decision. It's a choice that really sets the stage for a new way of thinking about freedom. And that initial act of, well, risky faith, it leads us right into the central theme of the source material, a new kind of freedom, specifically liberation from what the text calls the law and sin. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The text makes a super important distinction, and you can see the original terms on the slide. It separates the idea of a sinner, or tsumibito, from a criminal, or zainin. See, a criminal is someone who breaks society's rules, right? But a sinner, in this way of thinking, is anyone living a self-centered life, kind of separated from a higher purpose. The text argues that trying to live strictly by the law, this set of religious and social rules, actually traps people. And it brings in the Apostle Paul, who believed he'd found a completely different path to freedom. And to explain this, the text gives this great analogy. Let's walk through it. First, just imagine you have an impossible debt. Let's say 100 million yen. You can't possibly pay it. Then someone comes along and just pays the entire thing for you. It's a gift. You're completely free. But here's the struggle. You don't fully trust it. You keep working. You keep suffering, trying to pay back a debt that's already gone. That, the text says, is the trap of living by the law. Real freedom only comes when you stop trying to earn it and just accept the gift. So this leads us to a really important question. What kind of freedom are we even talking about here? Because the source outlines two very, very different types. First, you've got the kind of freedom we're all familiar with, socio-political freedom. As you can see on this timeline, societies have fought for centuries to get it, moving from these rigid hierarchies, like in Japan's Edo period, all the way to the modern era where human rights are formally protected. It's that hard-won right to choose your job, your beliefs, your path in life. But, and this is the key, the text contrasts this with a totally different internal kind of freedom. This is about liberation from our own self-centered nature. And this is where the whole idea gets really provocative, because according to the text, misunderstanding this internal freedom can actually lead to some pretty destructive outcomes. The text warns that if this freedom is mistaken for just a license to do whatever we want, it leads to conflict, envy, and division. And the language it uses to describe this is, well, it's incredibly stark. The argument is that using freedom just to satisfy every personal desire doesn't lead to happiness. Instead, it leads to a state where we bite and devour one another. So, if freedom isn't about doing whatever you want, then what is it for? And this brings us to the source's really powerful conclusion. And here it is. This is the big paradox. True freedom is not freedom from responsibility, but freedom to serve other people. It's a direct echo of that first choice by Mary and Joseph, right? That decision to accept a dangerous path of service over their own safety. I mean, think about that for a second. It's a radical reversal of how we usually think. The highest, most ultimate form of freedom is found in choosing to put other people first. And according to the text, the outcome of living this way isn't all that conflict and fighting. It's qualities like love and joy, peace, kindness, all these things you see here. So this leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. If freedom isn't just about a lack of constraints, but about what we choose to do for others, what does that mean for how we actually live our lives? Thanks for joining this explainer.